Napa know-how.
The Napa guy knows not to judge a man by his car's multicolored paint job or absence of modern gadgetry. Who cares if it's technically old enough to vote and the windows are powered by the strength of your left arm? Your monthly payment is zero, and it'll stay that way. Because with over 500,000 parts and a little Napa know-how, you can keep anything on the road. She may not be pretty, but she's all yours. That's Napa know-how.
Napa know-how.
Blog Talk Radio.
Good morning. This is your hostess, Llorraine Neithardt, and the program is Venus Unplugged, the virtual heartbreak hotel. Today, we're going to continue with the four aspects of the eternal woman. Okay, the archetypal patterns that live within us. They are running our lives. And the purpose, one of the many purposes, besides sharing this fascinating subject matter that makes the world go round, of love, the good, the bad, and the individuated, our journey in this incarnation is to become whole. That's the task. Whether we get love or give love or receive it or don't, love is the driving force that motivates. It's a motivating factor. And the work of individuation, that word means, it's a Jungian word, it means wholeness, our movement towards wholeness. And so everything that happens in our life serves that purpose. Nothing is ever lost. Nothing is not wrong. It's the story. It's the continuation, the living ethos of our lives. And love is always behind it. And that's what I want to discuss, to help people, all of you, learn to think psychically. Okay, I was born with the gift. Actually, my actual gift is scent. I smell the soul, which is kind of interesting, and doesn't have a scent. Like it's an essence, and everybody is different. And this gift, which is both a blessing and a curse, has always motivated me to understand what is it that I'm feeling, what is it that I know to be true, but I don't have a container, or I don't have an answer. And so this lifelong search, and I'll continue even to the beyond with this fascinating journey and language. So the work of Carl Jung, which is influenced me greatly, that Jung understood the power of mythology. There was the big difference between Jung and Freud was Jung felt that man's tragic flaw was religious, meaning religio, that which connects us to the divine, and Freud felt that it was sexual. They both were a little right. Jung was a Leo, Freud was a Taurus. So it starts making sense. So that's what I'm trying to give you. It's like, okay, what are these archetypes? What are these fundamental energies that motivate everything in our life? Whether we repress it, whether we accept it, and is kind of the plot of love, all right? So the mythology and the archetypes and the collective unconscious clarified as concepts, and they all link together. Myths or metaphors, they're the descriptions of psychic processes and development, which connect us to the instinctive basis of our existence. Mythic ideas can be observed worldwide in mythology, fairy tales, in dreams and visions and fantasies of normal or psychically ill persons. While the intellect may see mythologies or fairy tales or dreams as futile speculation, to the emotions, it is a healing and valid activity. Okay. So the archetypes, myths, the fairy tales, to the emotions is a healing and valid activity which expresses life more precisely than science and allows it to be lived out more innately than through man-made codes of ethics. Mythic life, that journey, that language, it's going beyond. It's a symbolic language which gives unimaginable religious experiences. Religio, the word religio is that which connects us. An image, a form in which we express itself or ourselves. Myth, fairy tale, dreams, is the revelation of a divine life in man. It is not we who invent myth, rather it speaks to us as a word of God. So you know those dreams that you cast away every morning? That's a love letter from the divine that you don't have time to write down. Just write some little notes down, okay? Or just the feeling that you have. It's spiritual etiquette. It's psychic etiquette, okay? Now, myths derive from the archetypes, primordial ideas of humanity, basic patterns of instinct which occur universally, an imprint which implies an imprinter. That's how the divine speaks, the symbolic language. And if we know the code, so that's part of what I want to work with here. Love's code. What are these mysteries? It's really it's the only game in town, okay? The archetypes are not intellectually invented. They are always there, and they produce certain processes in the unconscious. One could best compare with myths. That's the origin of mythology. Mythology is a dramatization of a series of images that formulate the life of the archetypes. So archetypes are alive. We don't know what the hell they're doing, but if we begin to understand their symbolic language, it is amazing the meaning that will be in your life, because I think humanity can suffer anything, but if it has meaning, it's when it doesn't have meaning that we rile, it feels useless. So everything in your life has meaning. Not the meaning that the ego gives it to it, but the meaning that the soul gives it to it, that psyche gives it to it, that love itself gives. And in our culture, love is in exile. Aphrodite is standing at the edge. She's not allowed to come in because she's an upstart. She gets people to do things and love and laughter and freedom and joy and passion and heartbreak. That's all part of that enchilada. And she's our girl. She's given that to us. So this is why I'm also doing this Heartbreak Hotel, to help people become individuals. Individuation is a term that Jung developed, which means our wholeness. So individuation does not only mean that man has become truly human as distinct from animal, but that he is to become partially divine as well. That means, on a practical level, that he becomes adult, responsible for his existence, knowing that he does not only depend on God, but that God also depends on man. It's a quote from Jung. So that's pretty intense for the first thing in the morning to work with, but it's true. So when you listen, and you can go back and you can download these podcasts, and you can just listen to them and just let them flow into you. Psyche knows and can feel it. You don't have to understand this intellectually, because it's not intellect. It's the wisdom of the heart. The heart knows. It really, truly does. So we're going to continue with the four eternal feminine. Okay, so that's the mother, and the opposite is the Hatara. Okay. And then there is the Amazon and the Medaio. So these are archetypes that live in all of us, men too. And we'll identify with one more than another. And the opposite is usually the one we don't like, and we see it into others. But if we begin to realize, like, well, okay, so we've been going over the mother, and everybody's got one. You can't get on the planet without one, and you can't incarnate without one. So that's a very powerful archetype. So the archetypal mother is the divine feminine, the Lady of Guadalupe and Demeter, and remember her daughter Persephone. That's the one that's abducted into the underworld. But the opposite of the mother is the Hatara. She's the woman that is not interested in, she may have children, but that's not her main concern. Her main concern is companion of her lover, her man, all right? And we'll talk about that next week. This week we want to finish up the mother, okay, and how does she operate in our lives, okay? So Tony Wolfe wrote, in the case of the maternal professions, the place of the home is taken by institutions and organizations of public utility. Okay, so what's she saying there? She wrote this almost 100 years ago. Okay, that the mother, in terms of the career, when we're motivated by the mother archetype, those people, and it can be a man can have a strong mother instinct, okay? And sometimes in love relationships, we get confused and we want the man to mother us. And unless he has a strong mother archetype operating inside of him, he can't do that. He doesn't know how to do that. So very often this mother archetype, okay, or a predominant pattern of how we operate in the world. Remember, the mother is the one who relates through the children, whoever she takes care of. It could be animal, it could be children. She can even treat her husband or lover as child. Right. So very often you find these women in schools, in hospitals, in service professions, and that attracts the mother type. And it provides the culture with enormous strength and pioneering achievement. The nurturing skills of the mother are highly adapted to the public service and can enrich the culture with great strength and effective leadership. Teaching, medicine, psychology, children, personal work, social work, household management, design, food, etc. These are all these nourishing parts of us, okay? Now, remember, we've got all four of those aspects or archetypes inside of us, but we usually choose one and live our life according to that and hate its opposite in others or within ourselves. And we need to bring consciousness. What is consciousness? What are we becoming conscious of? Whatever we don't know about ourselves. And what we're becoming conscious of are these patterns, these archetypal patterns, the DNA that makes humanity grow and evolve. It's as ancient as time and as futuristic as 1,000 years from now. It has no time. So the mother, and so that's the mother. And those sometimes, not everything is written in stone. These are just suggestions, and you'll come up with your own. Okay. Now, as an opposite of the effects of mothering on career life, there's a story of a young woman who, caught unconsciously, chooses a career that her mother had wanted and misses an experience of which she may have been ideally talented and suited. Think about it. Sometimes your mother will say, oh, you'd be great at what? And you're thinking, what? I wouldn't be great at that. My mother thought it was a great idea if I would get a city job. It's the only time I ever failed a test. It was terrifying, not to mention gray. That's what she wanted. That was, she's Capricorn. She wanted, authority. She wanted me to be protected in that way. And I wanted to wear hot pink and run wild and be in service to beauty. I won. Okay. And the mother type, now this is interesting with women, okay, and men, how the mother will relate to men. So the relationship of the mother to the male is determined by his aspects of husband and father. I'm quoting Tony Wolfe here. So his workplace in the world is protected and promoted. Whatever he experiences as the deepest utterances of his private soul, aside from his career and aspirations, may be suppressed by her, and he thus becomes a necessary fixture. He will probably exaggerate his virility in male company among his male friends. Mother may unconsciously ascribe the role of father to him in the outside world, so that his relationship to her is circumcised. That's an interesting Jungian truth. It is circumcised. Circumscribed by his role as parent. So this is when she's getting a little loopy. She knows what is best for the children and for him. Yeah, well, there's an affair waiting to happen. They are no longer peers. She is the one who knows everything. This is the attitude that all men are boys. That is such a setup for an affair, because he's going to go looking for the Hatara. He's going to go look for the lover, just so he can balance out his masculinity. And it may come in an art form. It may not physically be an affair, but he's going to try, the resolution is to try to find something that he loves that's deeply related to him, so that he doesn't get caught up in being cockled and mother-bound. That's what's called mother-bound. So if your attitude is all men are boys, you got to check that out, man. Because if all men are boys, that makes it, psychically incestuous. If the husband is really the child, what's going on there? There can be no passion. It's forbidden. It's like, oh, I can't do that. And it's the mother energy kind of unhooked, man. It's dangerous. So yes, these nurturing instincts are fantastic, but chill your jets. Okay. Then also, when we see children and mother, another quote from Woolf, her thoughts, once she, the mother, realizes her primary preference as a mother, she may arrange the rest of her life accordingly, either through marriage or motherly profession or activities. Marriages is perceived through the point of view of ensuring optimal home and school conditions, social positions, security, and career opportunities. Because that's what she's, that's her essence. Now, in the story of Demeter and Persephone, that is one of the, which is the Eleusinian mysteries. These are the great mysteries of Greece. We still don't know really what went on, but it was a rite of passage of mother and daughter, and also the separation of mother and daughter. Persephone, the daughter of Demeter, is abducted into the underworld, and she becomes the bride of Hades. And then when Demeter goes around and stops all growth, because Demeter is growth. The mother grows everything, and until she can get the return of her daughter. Now, part of the reason, this happened, what this story is about, because Rhea knew, they set the deal up, because it was Demeter. It was like, man, Demeter, you're just strangling your kids. Persephone's never going to get to be her own self. And it's also the child or the young daughter within ourselves. We won't let her explore. We won't let her be. It's like, no, I got to mother her. I mean, she needs my protection. Well, if you're really doing the mothering energy properly, there comes a point where we release the children into the world, and also we begin to self-mother, because that's one of the shadow aspects of the mother archetype. We don't mother ourselves. We need to do that. So the over-mothering, if a mother knows that she suffered a great deal in her own childhood from needing material necessities, and if she needed much more of her personal mother's time, the love and the intention, the encouragement, or the tolerance, then she may bestow more of these bounties on her children or her child, not usually the husband, though, or the lover, than they actually require. If so, this may delay the maturing of the child and encourage their dependency on her. In the worst-case scenario, this may even deprive them of their own responsible adulthood. the mother's job to prepare the child to know the beauty and the joy and the pain and of growing on your own terms. So one of the things, the shadow aspects, if we're too adept, is that the self-nurture. And how do we self-nurture? Okay, we need to understand that regardless of her type, many relate to their own selfhood and their talents and their needs for growth and challenges and pleasures and tastes and self-respect. So we learn to talk to ourselves. Because there's voices going off in our head all the time, right? So start listening. That's usually the tension of the opposite. Something else is going on, right? But if we make it conscious. Now, if a witch is like screaming in our ear, you're fat, you're stupid, you're unlovable, it's like just find out, who is that opposite? Why is she so angry? How have we dishonored her? Because these archetypes we're not related to properly will turn on us. Okay. But when we learn to self-nurture, it's in the presence of nurturing where we're forgiving to ourselves. And it's like, oh, okay, yeah, all right. I didn't know that, or I couldn't do that, or please forgive me for being so cruel to myself, or please forgive me for bullying myself. That's not fair. Okay. And taking a friendly and loving attitude towards the self. Not indulgent, loving. Really being able to see that. Because when we neglect ourselves, honey, and then those kiddies got to go off into the world, we're either going to stop them or we go through this terrible, well, we do, go through the empty nest syndrome. Okay. That's when suddenly the children really are ready. And a woman wakes up and goes like, who the fuck am I? Who am I? I only know myself according to my kitchen and taking care of my kids and doing all that. But we still, the purpose of incarnating is individuation. Okay, you did that part. Now you have to go on your journey of becoming whole. So these inner voices, let's say if in childhood you were mothered or fathered by somebody scolding and bullying you, most likely you will treat yourself with constant self-criticism, shaming, and guilt. You will be a poor companion to be with, uncomfortable about being alone, and feel below in most social situations. Okay, people say, well, I don't have any confidence. Yeah, because of the bully within. Okay. You bully yourself by your own inner scolding and quick to do the bidding of others in order to keep at bay the angry parental voices inside you. So this is your heart task, if you so wish to take it. Pay attention to your inner speaking. What are we saying to ourselves all the time? Start talking to yourself with words of encouragement and nurturing and acceptance. Not easy, but that voice is going on all the time. And if we can turn to it and say, okay, the greatest path that I can, or defense, okay, is love this wounded voice, and begin to realize, like, wait a second, just because, you're not your childhood. Whatever happened to you, you can use as a positive turning around. It's energy. It's caught energy. So with the inner, we speak with the heart task is listen, because the heart is wise. That's the head that's going off into all that stuff. But years ago when I first started to do this work, and it was like, when I began to realize, wow, what a bully. I would have never imagined that I was so cruel to myself. Terrible things to say. I really had myself on a very, very thin red tightrope from one side of my brain to the other, and there was no room for tolerance. Okay? That was a form of addiction to perfection. Okay. But when I began to realize what I was up to, I would leave like a love letter or loving messages on my phone and my answering machine. So, I'd forget all about it, and then a couple of hours later I'd be picking up my messages and I'd hear this voice, be like, oh, isn't that lovely? What a loving voice. And then I realized it was me, talking to me. And I took it in. I took in the loving energy until I could really get good at working and understanding, like, no, okay, you can point something out, but you're not allowed to brutalize me. You're not allowed to do it that way. We can do it in a loving way. We can do a dance. We can paint a picture. We can go window shopping. Beauty, for me, heals, but I'm Venus-possessed, okay? Other people may want to climb mountains or whatever, but that loving voice, become the loving mother, whether you had one, a loving mother or not, it's never too late to have a good childhood and develop. Remember, the divine child has the connection to the divine. So the way that we treat that within ourselves is what loving is about. We need to love the self with a capital S. We need to know that that self is there. So when the mother takes care of herself, the children are released from the feeling that they are solely responsible for the success or failure of their mother's life and happiness. And you all have examples and seen examples, if it's not personally in your life, of when love turns into power or guilt for your poor old mother. What are you going to do? It's like, no. Her healthy joy is to see you whole, even if it's not her idea of wholeness, but it's the divine pattern in you, okay? So, and from when the mother begins to self-nurture, find out who she is, what are these other parts, maybe take some pole dancing and let the Hatara out, that passionate one out, okay? So when the mother begins to be loving and kind to herself and wise, not indulgent, then the children are free. And then the children can begin to realize and understand that they are ultimately responsible for their own lives and own genuine joy. And that's what we're trying to attempt here. And we're also the children of the divine. And that the divine needs us as much as we need the divine. We are all mirroring one another. So that's part of what we're doing now. Now, next week, we're going to go into the Hatara, okay? And which is the opposite of the mother. These are both have to do with relationships. The mother is related totally to the child and the needs of the child, or treats everybody as a child, and in the negative can be the all-powerful mother. Mother knows best. Not always. She usually doesn't have a sense of, unless she knows herself, she doesn't have a sense that the child has a completely different inner world and a secret, destiny or secret talents that she may not be privy to. She doesn't belong. The child doesn't belong to the mother. The mother is a vehicle. And when we get into the goddess worship, and that's the archetypal mother. Now, she has the ultimate power. She really rules, all right? But the personal mother, sometimes we've got to give it a rest. We don't have to take care of every single thing. We can take care of ourselves, which is usually what the mother who's solely identified, the mothering, finds self-love and nurturing very difficult. But that's the counterbalance. So next week we're moving on, okay, and into its opposite. Just a quote from Jung here. Jung's work reflects his life. Of him, he said, he speaks of himself here, I am the clash of opposites. Throughout a long life, he learned to live and reconcile these polarities into a unity of wholeness. And that's what we're trying to do. Bring up these opposites, understand them, let them live, and let them guide us. And then there'll still be heartbreak, but it will have meaning. And that's the most important thing. So, my darlings, check me. I always forget this part. Go to Facebook, like me on Facebook, download the sessions, call 212-757-8914 if you want to have a private session, so all can be revealed in your world. And talk. And this eclipse, it's going to be a doozy, filled with insight. We may not like it at first, but it's gold. You're going to get gold. Till we meet again, I got to bounce. Bye.
They're going to kill the love of my life.
Casey!
If I don't go back to what I was doing.
Our line of work is quite brutal and quite ruthless.
How far would you go for love?
You steal truck, bring it to me. Then you make your money.
Is it dangerous?
Of course it's dangerous.
Nicholas Hoult, Felicity Jones, with Ben Kingsley and Anthony Hopkins.
All this trouble, all this pain, for love.
Collide. Now playing. Rated PG-13. May be inappropriate for children under 13. Collide. Now playing. Rated PG-13. May be inappropriate for children under 13. Collide. Now playing.